in the mist-shrouded hollows of Blackthorn Vale, where ancient oaks whispered secrets to the wind. The grand manor of Thornfield Hall loomed like a sentinel of forgotten sins. It was a chill autumn evening in 1925 when Judge Harlan Blackthorn, the iron-fisted arbiter of justice, met his end. Seated at his mahogany desk, quill in hand, he clutched his throat as poison coursed through his veins, his final gasp echoing through the empty halls. A single note lay beside him. The sins of the judge shall be judged. Who among the villagers harbored such venom? The mystery beckoned, drawing the keen mind of Hercule Poirot into its web. Chapter 1. The Summons to the Vale. The train rattled through the English countryside, its rhythmic clatter a soothing counterpoint to the somber thoughts of Hercule Poirot. He sat in a first-class carriage, his gloved hands folded neatly over a silver-tipped cane, his impeccable mustache twitching as he gazed out at the mist-wreathed hills of the Cotswolds. It was October 1925, and the autumn air carried a chill that seeped through the window, though Poirot's mind was far from the cold. A telegram from Inspector Japp, his old friend from Scotland Yard, had summoned him urgently to Blackthorn Vale, a remote village nestled in a hollow where ancient oaks stood like silent sentinels. "Murder most foul, Poirot," the message had read, its brevity betraying Japp's agitation. Judge Harlan Blackthorn poisoned. Local constabulary baffled. Your little gray cells needed post-haste. Poirot adjusted his Homburg hat, his sharp green eyes reflecting the blurred greenery outside. A judge poisoned. Such a crime suggested not merely malice but precision, a mind as calculating as his own. He relished the challenge, for it was in the unraveling of human deceit that his intellect found its truest exercise. The train slowed, and the platform of Blackthorn Vale Station came into view. A modest affair of weathered wood and peeling paint, shrouded in fog. Japp awaited him, his burly frame unmistakable under a bowl shattered, and enemies nursing grudges. The coroner's report was unequivocal. Arsenic, administered in his evening brandy, had stopped his heart. He was discovered slumped over his mahogany desk, quill in hand, his face contorted in a rictus of agony. Beside him lay a cryptic note, its ink still fresh. "The sins of the judge shall be judged." Poirot's mustache twitched. "A note, you say? Most curious. A theatrical flourish, perhaps, or a clue to the killer's mind. And the suspects?" Japp ticked them off on his fingers as the car wound through narrow lanes flanked by hedgerows, the village unfolding in glimpses of thatched cottages and a gray stone church. "5 main ones, Poirot. Lady Eleanor Blackthorn, his widow, lovely woman, but trapped in a cold marriage. Victor Hale, a rough sort, just out of prison after a decade thanks to Blackthorn's harsh ruling. Dr. Silas Thorne, the village physician, rumored to have been blackmailed by the judge. Amelia Blackthorn, the judge's niece, cut out of his will. And Reverend Josiah Crow, the local vicar, who clashed with Blackthorn over moral matters. All had reason to want him gone." "Reason, oui," Poirot mused. "But opportunity and means, these are the pillars of murder. Take me to the scene, Inspector." Thornfield Hall loomed at the end of a gravel drive, a Gothic edifice of weathered stone draped in ivy, its tall windows like eyes peering into the gathering dusk. The manor exuded an air of faded grandeur, its turrets piercing the low clouds. As they entered, the heavy oak door creaked and Poirot's senses sharpened, taking in the polished parquet floors, the scent of beeswax, and the oppressive silence that seemed to cling to the walls. Lady Eleanor Blackthorne greeted them in the drawing room, a vision of restrained elegance in a dove-gray gown, her auburn hair pinned tightly. Her hand had shaped lives for better or worse. The brandy decanter sat on a sideboard, its crystal glinting in the lamplight, now cordoned off by police tape. The note lay where it had been found, its words a chilling echo of the village's folklore, a legend of a sinister judge who haunted the Vale, punishing the unjust. Jap scratched his head. Locals are whispering about ghosts, Poirot. Rubbish, of course, but that note's got them spooked. Ghosts do not poison brandy, mon ami, Poirot said, his tone dry. But the human hand does, and that hand leaves traces. He examined the desk, noting a smudged fingerprint on the quill, a half-written letter to a charity, and a locked drawer that resisted his gentle probing. What did the judge keep here, I wonder? A maid hovering nervously confirmed the drawer was always locked, the key on Blackthorne's chain, now missing. Poirot's gaze swept the room, landing on a portrait of the judge, his stern visage glowering down as if still presiding. The man had been a titan in the Vale, his wealth built on shrewd investments and his reputation on ruthless justice. Yet power breeds enemies, and Poirot sensed a web of motives spun long before the fatal dose. As they left the study, a howl pierced the night, distant yet eerie, carried on the wind from the moors beyond the village. Jap shivered. That's the third time this week. Locals swear it's the spectral judge. Poirot's lips curved slightly. A convenient legend, Inspector. But Hercule Poirot seeks facts, not phantoms. Tomorrow, I shall meet these suspects. Each heart holds a secret, and I shall uncover them all. They retired to the Blackthorne Arms, a cozy inn where Poirot took a room overlooking the village green. The publican, a stout man with a wary eye, muttered about the judge's enemies. Plenty wanted him dead, sir. He sent good men to ruin and called it justice. Alone in his room, Poirot lit a cigarette and reviewed, but the others' movements were murkier. Hale claimed he was at the pub, Thorne at his surgery, Amelia in London, Crow at the vicarage. Each alibi would be tested, each motive dissected. As he extinguished his cigarette, another howl echoed, closer now, raising the hairs on his neck. He smiled faintly. The Vale plays its tricks, but Poirot is not so easily swayed. Yet as he drifted to sleep, the note's words lingered. The sins of the judge shall be judged. Were they a clue or a taunt? The game had begun, and Hercule Poirot would not rest until the truth was laid bare. The next morning he rose early, his mind as sharp as the frost on the window pane. At breakfast, Jap relayed new information. A vial of arsenic had been found in the manor's greenhouse, smudged with unidentifiable fingerprints. Could be the murder weapon, Jap said. But why leave it there? A distraction, perhaps, Poirot replied, sipping his coffee. Or carelessness. We shall see. Their first stop was the greenhouse, a glass structure bursting with exotic blooms, where Lady Eleanor often gardened. She joined them, her composure fraying as Poirot questioned her about the vial. I know nothing of poisons, she insisted, her hands twisting a handkerchief. I grow roses, not death. Yet Poirot noted her familiarity with the greenhouse's contents, including a shelf of gardening chemicals. A false clue or a damning oversight? He pocketed a sample of soil for analysis, his mind already weaving connections. As they returned to the manor, a villager approached, eyes wide with fear. The judge's ghost walked last night, he whispered. Saw it by the churchyard, all in black. Jap scoffed, but Poirot's eyes gleamed. A ghost or a killer cloaked in legend? We shall meet our suspects, Inspector, and the truth will emerge. The day promised revelations, but the Vale's secrets were as thick as its fog. Who among the living had judged the judge, and what shadow moved in the night, howling its warning? The observation away, his mental dossier growing. Jap paced, his boots thudding on the Persian rug. This place gives me the creeps, Poirot. All this talk of ghosts and poison, it's like something out of a penny dreadful. Non, Inspector, Poirot said, examining a silver cigarette case on the mantel. It is human nature we confront, not fiction. The heart of this crime lies in the hearts of those around us. Tell me more of this judge. Jap obliged, painting a vivid portrait of Harlan Blackthorne. A man in his late 50s, Blackthorne had risen from a modest clerkship to become the Vale's most feared magistrate. His rulings were legendary for their severity. Thieves sent to hard labor, poachers fined into ruin, and even minor offenders publicly shamed. Yet he was not without virtues. His charitable donations had funded the village school, and his legal acumen had earned him respect, if not affection. His marriage to Eleanor, a beauty 20 years his junior, was rumored to be a transaction. She brought status, he wealth. Their union bore no children, and whispers of discord were common in the village. He made enemies like a farmer sows seeds, Jap said. Hale's just one. That man's been shouting about revenge since he got out. Poirot nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of a carved chair. And yet, revenge is a dish served cold, no? Poison requires patience, not passion. We must look beyond the obvious. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the manor's butler, a stooped man named Grayson, whose rheumy eyes betrayed exhaustion. "Beg pardon, sirs," he said, "but the constables found something in the garden. A glove, blood-stained, near the rose beds." Jap's eyes lit up. "Lead on, man." The garden was a labyrinth of hedges and flower beds, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The glove, a woman's lace affair, lay half buried under a rose bush, its delicate fabric stained with dark splotches. Poirot knelt, his coat carefully tucked to avoid the mud. "Blood, perhaps," he murmured, "or a clever." Ventured into the village, their boots crunching on the cobbled street. Blackthorne Vale was a postcard of rural England. Thatched roofs, a babbling brook, and a church spire piercing the sky. Yet beneath its charm lay tension, evident in the furtive glances of passers-by. At the Blackthorne Arms, the pub was abuzz with locals, their conversations halting as the strangers entered. The publican, a ruddy-faced man named Tompkins, served the mail with a wary nod. "You're here about the judge, then? Bad business. He wasn't loved but poison. That's cowardly." Poirot sipped delicately, his distaste for the warm ale hidden behind a polite smile. "Monsieur, tell me of Victor Hale. He frequented your establishment, oui?" "Aye," Tompkins said, wiping the bar. "Came in most nights since his release. Bitter as hops he was, cursing Blackthorn's name. Last night he was here till closing. Near 10, I'd say. And did he leave alone? Poirot pressed. Tompkins hesitated. Can't say for sure. It was busy. But he's a rough one, that Hale. The information was useful but incomplete. Poirot thanked the publican and turned to Jap. We must verify this alibi, Inspector. A man in a pub is visible, but a backdoor exit is not. Their next stop was Dr. Silas Thorne's surgery, a tidy cottage with a brass plaque. Thorne, a gaunt man with spectacles perched on a hawkish nose, received them with professional courtesy. I'm at your disposal, gentlemen, he said, though his fingers drummed nervously on his desk. The judge was my patient for years. Heart trouble, you know. I prescribed tonics, nothing more. And arsenic? Poirot asked, his tone mild but piercing. Thorne flinched. In minute doses, for medicinal purposes, but I keep my supplies locked. Poirot noted a locked drawer in the surgery, its key dangling from Thorne's watch chain. Anxious eyes. Uncle Harlan was cruel, she said, her voice trembling. He cut me from his will for a charity, but I was in London that night. Train tickets prove it. Poirot examined the ticket she produced, noting a smudge in the ink. Forgery or error? He let the question hang, his mind cataloging discrepancies. Dinner at the inn was a somber affair, interrupted by another unearthly howl from the moors. Jap pushed his plate away. This place is cursed, Poirot. Ghost or not, we've got a killer to catch. We, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. And catch them we shall. Tomorrow we deepen our inquiries. The Vale holds its secrets, but Hercule Poirot shall unravel them. As he retired, the note's words echoed in his mind. The sins of the judge shall be judged. A killer's taunt, or a deeper truth? The fog thickened outside, and the howl came again, closer, as if the Vale itself were watching. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. The morning sun struggled through the heavy mist that cloaked Blackthorn Vale, casting a pale glow over Thornfield Hall. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit despite the rural setting, stood in the Manor's conservatory, where exotic orchids and ferns seemed to lean in as if eavesdropping on the secrets of the house. The air was humid, thick with the scent of earth and blooms, a stark contrast to the grim purpose of his visit. Inspector Jap, nursing a cup of tepid tea, paced the tiled floor, his boots echoing in the glass-walled space. The murder of Judge Harlan Blackthorne, poisoned by arsenic in his brandy, loomed over them like the Manor itself, and Poirot's little gray cells were already at work, sifting through the tangle of motives and alibis. Mon ami, Poirot said, his voice soft but precise. This conservatory is a stage, non? A place where secrets bloom as readily as these flowers. Let us begin with the first of our suspects. Jap nodded, consulting his notebook. Victor Hale's up, monsieur, on the evening of the judge's demise. At the Blackthorn Arms, drowning my sorrows in ale. Hale growled, his rural burr thick with resentment. Asked Tompkins, the publican. I was there till closing, near 10 o'clock. Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle sign of his skepticism. A public house is a busy place, no? Easy to slip out unnoticed. Perhaps through a back door? Hale's jaw tightened, his fingers flexing. I ain't no sneak. I stayed put. Half the village saw me. Bien? Poirot said, his eyes never leaving Hale's. We shall verify. But tell me, did you ever confront the judge after your release? Hale hesitated, then admitted, once. Week ago outside the courthouse. Told him he'd pay for what he'd done. He just laughed, cold as ice. Poirot noted the fidgeting of Hale's scarred hands. A nervous tic, or a tell of guilt? He dismissed the man with a nod, turning to Jap. His anger is genuine, Inspector. But is it murderous? We must check this alibi with precision. Their next interview was with Dr. Silas Thorne, the village physician, who arrived with the air of a man accustomed to authority. His gaunt frame was clad in a tailored waistcoat, his wire-rimmed spectacles glinting as he surveyed the conservatory with clinical detachment. His hands, however, betrayed a slight tremor as he adjusted his cuffs. Dr. Thorne, Poirot said, gesturing to a wicker chair. You attended Judge Blackthorne for many years, oui? His heart, I understand, was weak. Thorne nodded, his voice measured. Correct. I prescribed tonics for his condition, nothing unusual. He was a demanding patient, but I respected him. And arsenic? Poirot's question was sharp, cutting through the doctor's composure. Thorne's eyes narrowed. In trace amounts, as a medicinal tonic, yes. Common practice, Monsieur Poirot, but strictly controlled. My supplies are locked in my surgery. Poirot's gaze drifted to the doctor's watch chain where a small key dangled. And this black Poirot, if it's the murder weapon, why leave it here? And whose prints are smudged? A question of intent, mon ami, Poirot replied. The killer may wish us to chase shadows, or perhaps they underestimated the thoroughness of Hercule Poirot. To deepen his understanding of the victim, Poirot requested a tour of the Manor's library, where Blackthorne's personal papers were kept. The room was a sanctuary of oak shelves and leather-bound tomes, the air heavy with the scent of old paper. A portrait of the judge hung above the fireplace, his stern eyes seeming to follow their every move. Poirot studied the judge's desk, where a half-written letter to a charitable trust lay abandoned, its ink matching the cryptic note found beside the body. A coincidence, or a deliberate echo? Grayson, the butler, provided insight into Blackthorne's life. The master was a hard man, sir, he said, his voice low. Came from nothing, a clerk's son, but built his fortune through investments, land mostly. His rulings made him feared, though. Sentenced a lad to 7 years for stealing bread once. Said it was justice. Justice, Poirot murmured. Or tyranny. And his enemies, Grayson? Who among them might act? The butler hesitated. Plenty had cause, sir. Hale, for one. And the vicar, heard them arguing once, about the church's role in the village. Even Miss Amelia, the niece, wept when he changed his will. The will, a critical piece. Poirot learned Blackthorne had recently revised it, cutting out his niece Amelia in favor of a charitable foundation. Motive for her, certainly, but also for Lady Eleanor, who stood to inherit the bulk of the estate. The judge's significance in the Vale was clear. He was a pillar, but one that cast a long, oppressive shadow. As the afternoon waned, Poirot and Jap ventured into the village, their path taking them past the ancient church, its spire piercing the fog. The Blackthorne Arms was quieter now, its patrons subdued by the weight of the murder. Tompkins, the publican, confirmed Hale's presence the previous night, cataloging the vicar's unease. Amelia Blackthorne was next, met at the Manor's drawing room as dusk fell. Her fiery hair was pinned loosely, her youthful face shadowed by worry. "Uncle Harlan was cruel," she said bitterly. "He cut me out of his will for no reason, just to fund his precious charities. I was in London that night. Train tickets prove it." Poirot examined the ticket, noting a smudge in the ink, a potential forgery. "We shall verify, mademoiselle," he said, his tone gentle but firm. Her eyes held defiance, but also fear, guilt, or innocence under pressure. As night enveloped the Vale, Poirot and Japp dined at the inn, the howl from the moors punctuating their meal. Locals whispered of the sinister judge, a spectral figure from the 1700s, hanged for corruption and said to haunt the unjust. The murder note echoed its legend, a clever distraction or a killer's taunt. Back in his room, Poirot reviewed his notes, his cigarette smoke curling in the lamplight. The suspect's motives were clear: Hale's revenge, Thorne's blackmail, Amelia's disinheritance, Crow's shame, Eleanor's entrapment. The arsenic vial was a puzzle. Its placement suggested intent. But whose? The judge's brandy habit was known, but who had access to the decanter? And the note, its theatricality pointed to a mind that reveled in drama. A new clue emerged from Japp's constable. A blood-stained glove, found in the garden, matched Lady Eleanor's wardrobe. "Could be us," Japp said. "But why leave it?" "The frame, perhaps," Poirot mused. "Or a careless act. We must test the blood." As he prepared for bed, Poirot overheard a heated exchange outside the inn, muffled by the fog. Creeping to the window, he saw Amelia and Crow in the shadows, her voice hissing. "He deserved it, Josiah. You know he did." The vicar's reply was inaudible, but his posture was tense, almost guilty. Poirot closed the window, his mind ablaze. An alliance between niece and vicar, or another layer of deception? His mind. A theatrical flourish that hinted at a calculating killer. Reverend Josiah Crow welcomed them into his study, a cramped room lined with theological tomes and lit by a single stained-glass window that cast fractured colors across the floor. The vicar, a man of middling years with a booming voice honed for sermons, adjusted his clerical collar with a nervous twitch. His eyes, shadowed by sleeplessness, betrayed a tension that belied his pastoral calm. "Monsieur le curé," Poirot began, his tone courteous but incisive. "You knew Judge Blackthorne well, oui? A man of strong opinions, I am told, and not always in harmony with your own." Crow nodded, his hands clasped tightly. "Harlan and I often clashed. He saw my campaigns against vice, drunkenness, gambling, as relics of a bygone era. He mocked my sermons, called them medieval. But murder? The Lord forbids such an act." Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle signal of his scrutiny. "And yet you were seen near Thornfield Hall on the evening of the judge's death. A parishioner places you there at 9 o'clock, an hour most curious. Pray explain." Crow's face paled, his fingers tightening on a silver crucifix. "A pastoral visit to Lady Eleanor," he said hastily. "She sought spiritual counsel. Her marriage was troubled, and she needed guidance. Counsel at such an hour?" Poirot's voice was gentle, but his eyes were sharp, like a hawk circling prey. "Most unusual, no? And what counsel did you offer, monsieur?" Crow hesitated, his gaze flickering to a carved wooden desk in the corner. "We spoke of forgiveness, of endurance. I left by 10, before the tragedy." Poirot noted the vicar's unease, his eyes lingering on the desk. As Crow reached for a Bible, a faint click revealed a hidden compartment, its edge barely visible. A secret, perhaps, tied to the judge's influence? Poirot filed the observation away, his mental dossier growing. Jap, less subtle, barely 20, entered with a nervous energy, her fiery hair pinned loosely and her eyes shadowed by worry. Her dress, a simple muslin affair, contrasted with the room's opulence, its velvet drapes and gilded mirrors reflecting her unease. "Mademoiselle Amelia," Poirot said, offering a slight bow. "You have suffered a great loss, but also perhaps a great injustice. Your uncle's will, it excluded you, no?" Amelia's lips trembled, but her voice was firm. "He was cruel, Monsieur Poirot. Uncle Harlan promised me a share of the estate, then changed his will to favor his charities. I needed that money, for my future, my independence. But I was in London that night. My train tickets prove it." Poirot accepted the ticket she proffered, his gloved fingers tracing the ink. A smudge caught his eye, the date slightly blurred. An error or a forgery? "We shall verify, mademoiselle," he said, his tone neutral. "But tell me, did you ever confront your uncle about this decision?" "Once," she admitted, her cheeks flushing. "A month ago. He said I was ungrateful, that I'd squander his legacy. We argued, but I didn't kill him." Her defiance was tempered by fear, and Poirot noted a glance toward the door, as if expecting interruption. Was she hiding something or merely anxious under scrutiny? As they left the manor, Jap muttered, "That ticket's fishy, Poirot. If it's forged, she's got no alibi." "Patience, mon ami," Poirot replied. "A lie is a clue, but not yet a conviction." To deepen his understanding of the victim, Poirot requested access to Blackthorn's personal correspondence, housed in the manor's library. The butler, Grayson, led them to a room of oak shelves and leather-bound volumes, where a locked cabinet held the judge's papers. Grayson, his roomy eyes wary, produced a key from the judge's missing chain, found in a desk drawer after the murder. "The master was meticulous," Grayson said. "Kept everything, letters, rulings, even threats." Among the paper, decanter, Lady Eleanor, the staff, or a visitor like Crow. The greenhouse vial, found the previous day, gnawed at Poirot's mind. Its smudged label bore Dr. Thorne's name, but the fingerprints were inconclusive. Lady Eleanor, when questioned again, insisted she used only fertilizers. Yet her familiarity with the greenhouse's contents was evident. A false clue or a killer's oversight? As the afternoon waned, Poirot and Jap ventured into the village, seeking corroboration of alibis. At the Blackthorn Arms, Tompkins, the publican, confirmed Hale's presence, but admitted the back door's accessibility. "Could have slipped out," he said, echoing his earlier statement. A barmaid, however, recalled Crow passing by the pub around 9, his cassock fluttering in the wind, a detail contradicting his claim of leaving the manor by 10. Back at the manor, Poirot examined the study again, his eyes drawn to the brandy decanter, now sealed for testing. The glass bore no fingerprints, a curious absence, suggesting it had been wiped clean. The note, with its accusatory script, matched no handwriting in the household, yet its ink was fresh, identical to the judge's quill. A deliberate echo, or a coincidence? Dinner at the inn was interrupted by a villager's tale of a ghostly figure seen in the churchyard, cloaked in black. "The sinister judge," the man whispered, crossing himself. "He walks when justice fails." Japp scoffed, but Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A legend, Inspector, or a killer cloaked in myth. We must look beyond the shadows." That evening, as fog rolled in, Poirot overheard a whispered argument near the manor's garden. Creeping closer, he saw Amelia and Crow in the moonlight, her voice sharp. "You knew his cruelty, Josiah. He deserved it." Crow's reply was muffled, but his posture was tense, almost guilty. Returning to his room, Poirot lit a cigarette, his mind cataloging clues. Fog. Chapter 4. The Poisoned Chalice. The grand dining room of Thornfield Hall gleamed with the flicker of candlelight, its long mahogany table set with crystal and silver that caught the glow like stars in a night sky. Hercule Poirot stood at one end, his impeccable suit a stark contrast to the somber mood as he surveyed the gathered suspects. The air was thick with suspicion, the chandelier above casting shadows that danced like accusatory fingers across the paneled walls. It was the evening after the discovery of the blood-stained glove, and Poirot had requested this assembly to probe deeper into the murder of Judge Harlan Blackthorne, poisoned by arsenic in his brandy. The cryptic note, "The sins of the judge shall be judged," lay heavy in his mind, a taunt from a killer still at large. Inspector Japp, his bowler hat tucked under his arm, stood by the door, his eyes darting from face to face. The suspects sat uneasily. Lady Eleanor Blackthorne, her porcelain features composed but her hands clutching a lace handkerchief. Victor Hale, his scarred hands restless on the table. Dr. Silas Thorne, his spectacles glinting with a guarded intensity. Amelia Blackthorne, her youthful defiance tempered by nervous glances. And Reverend Josiah Crow, his clerical collar seeming to tighten with every breath. The weight of their secrets filled the room, and Poirot's little gray cells were poised to unravel them. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice smooth yet commanding. "We are here to confront the truth. Judge Blackthorne was a man of power, and power breeds enemies. One among you, or perhaps more, has woven a web of deceit. Hercule Poirot shall untangle it." Lady Eleanor poured sherry with steady hands, but Poirot noted her avoidance of the brandy decanter on the sideboard, the vessel of death, now sealed for forensic analysis. He stepped forward, his cane tapping lightly on the floor. "Madame Blackthorne, let us begin with you. Tell me of your marriage." "Not poisons. Arsenic? I use it in minute doses, but my supplies are secure." Poirot's mustache twitched. "And yet, doctor, a vial of arsenic was found in the greenhouse, bearing your label. Smudged, curiously, but yours. Explain, s'il vous plaît." Thorne's cheeks flushed. "Someone must have tampered with it. I store my chemicals in my surgery, locked away. I garden occasionally, but I've no reason to leave such a thing there." The vial, Poirot mused, was a puzzle. Too obvious a clue, perhaps a red herring. Yet the fingerprints, faintly matching Victor Hale's, suggested a frame or an alliance. He turned to Hale, whose glare could curdle milk. "Monsieur Hale, you have spoken of your hatred for the judge. Did you perhaps visit the greenhouse?" Hale slammed a fist on the table, rattling the crystal. I ain't been near no greenhouse. I was at the pub like I said. You think I'd be daft enough to leave evidence lying about? Calm yourself, monsieur, Poirot said, his tone soothing but firm. Anger does not prove innocence. Your fingerprints on the vial. How do you account for them? Hale's eyes widened, then narrowed. Someone's setting me up. I never touched no poison. The room tensed, and Poirot shifted his focus to a new discovery, revealed earlier by Jap. Inspector, this safe in the study, cracked open post-mortem, we? What did it contain? Jap nodded, producing a photograph of a document. A revised will, dated a week before the murder. It cuts out Miss Amelia, leaving most of the estate to Lady Eleanor and a charity. Amelia gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. That's not true. Uncle promised me a share, even after our argument. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And who knew of this will, mademoiselle? Did you perhaps seek to change it? No, Amelia's voice cracked. I was in London. I didn't know he'd finalized it. Reverend Crowe, silent until now, interjected, his voice booming. Feet, brandishing a crumpled newspaper clipping. This is what Blackthorne did to me. Framed me for theft, sent me to prison for a decade. I'd have killed him clean, not with poison like some coward. Jap restrained him, but Poirot raised a hand. Monsieur Hale, your passion is noted, but passion does not poison. Sit, and let us proceed with order. As Hale subsided, muttering, Poirot turned to the group. Each of you has a motive. Madame, your freedom and inheritance. Monsieur Hale, your revenge. Doctor, your secrets. Mademoiselle, your disinheritance. Reverend, your shame. But motive alone is not enough. We seek opportunity and means. He paused, letting the silence build, the candlelight flickering in the suspect's eyes. The greenhouse vial, the glove, the will. These are threads in a tapestry of deceit. But there is more. Inspector, the letter found in the vicar's study. Reveal it. Jap produced a photograph of a threatening letter from Blackthorne to Crowe. Reveal your sin or face ruin. The vicar's face drained of color, his hands trembling. A misunderstanding, Crowe stammered. Harlan was forceful, but I had no sin to confess. Poirot's eyes narrowed. We shall see, monsieur. Secrets like shadows grow long in the light of truth. The dinner concluded, the suspects dispersing with uneasy glances. Poirot lingered, examining the decanter once more. Its crystal was flawless, but the absence of prints was a clue in itself, a killer meticulous enough to wipe it clean. He recalled the judge's habit of sipping brandy each night, a ritual known to the household. The poison's slow action suggested it was administered earlier, perhaps at dinner, or even before. But how? Outside, a thunderclap shook the manor, the storm that had threatened all day breaking at last. Rain lashed the windows, and Jap joined Poirot in the study, his face grim. We've got another lead, Poirot. A groundskeeper found a footprint near the glove, small like a woman's. Could be Lady Eleanor's, or Amelia's. Poirot tisane. The inn's warmth a respite from the storm. The suspects' alibis were fraying. Eleanor's kitchen alibi relied on a single maid. Hale's pub visit left room for a slip out the back. Thorne's surgery log had gaps. Amelia's train ticket was suspect. Crowe's pastoral visit seemed a lie. The glove, the vial, the footprint, all pointed to a killer who played with evidence, taunting the investigators. The legend of the sinister judge whispered by villagers gnawed at Poirot's logic. The note's phrasing echoed the folklore, suggesting a killer familiar with the tale, or exploiting it. Was it a red herring, meant to evoke supernatural fear, or a signature of a mind steeped in the Vale's history? A knock at his door revealed Jap, soaked from the rain. "Poirot, we've got trouble." A groundskeeper just reported a figure in the churchyard cloaked in black near Blackthorn's grave. Locals are in a panic, saying it's the ghost. Poirot's lips curved slightly. "A ghost, or a killer bold enough to walk among us? We shall investigate, mon ami." They donned coats and ventured into the storm. The churchyard a maze of shadows and rain-slicked stones. Lightning illuminated a fleeting figure vanishing into the fog. Poirot knelt by the grave, finding freshly turned earth and a dropped locket, its clasp broken. Inside was a photograph. A young woman, resembling Amelia, but older. A clue to a hidden connection. As they returned to the inn, Jap muttered, "This case is a nightmare, Poirot. Ghosts, poison, and now lockets. What's next?" "The truth, Inspector," Poirot said, his voice steady. "The killer grows bold, but boldness breeds mistakes. Tomorrow, we tighten the net." The howl came again, piercing the storm, as if the Vale itself were warning them of the darkness yet to come. Chapter 5. Ghosts of Blackthorn. The fog clung to Blackthorn Vale like a shroud, its tendrils curling around the ancient oaks and thatched cottages as Hercule Poirot and Inspector Jap ventured into the village under a leaden sky. The murder of Judge Harlan Blackthorn, poisoned by arsenic in his brandy, had stirred the Vale's darkest legends, and the howl heard the previous night, attributed by locals to the spectral, sinister judge, echoed in Poirot's mind. The cryptic note beside the body, "The sins of the judge shall be judged," suggested a killer who reveled in theatrics, weaving folklore into their crime. The locket found near Blackthorn's grave, containing a photograph of a woman resembling Amelia, was the latest thread in a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot's little gray cells were alight with the challenge of unraveling it. Their first stop was the Blackthorn Arms, where the publican, Tompkins, leaned over the bar, his ruddy face etched with unease. The pub was quieter than usual, its patrons hushed by the weight of murder and myth. "You've heard the talk, gentlemen," Tompkins said, polishing a glass with nervous energy. "The sinister judge, they call him. A magistrate from the 1700s, hanged for taking bribes. Folks say he haunts the Vale, punishing those who twist justice." Poirot sipped his tisane, his distaste for ale hidden behind a polite smile. "A fascinating tale, Monsieur Tompkins. But Hercule Poirot seeks facts, not phantoms. Tell me, this legend, does it speak of notes, of judgments written in ink?" Tompkins nodded. "Aye, the stories say he left warnings, scrawled in blood or ink, cursing the guilty. That note by the judge's body, it's got the village spooked." Jap snorted. "Ghosts don't pour poison, Poirot. But this killer's using the legend, mark my words." "Oui, Inspector," Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming. "A red herring, perhaps, to cloak a human hand. But the hand leaves traces. Note you found. It's like the old stories." A red herring extraordinaire, Poirot thought. Yet the killer's mimicry of the legend suggested intimate knowledge of the Vale's history. Was it a local steeped in folklore, or an outsider exploiting it? He thanked Mrs. Cotter, his mind cataloging the parallels between myth and murder. Back at Thornfield Hall, Poirot requested a private audience with Amelia Blackthorne in the drawing room, its velvet drapes muffling the patter of rain outside. Amelia entered, her youthful face pale, her hands twisting a handkerchief. The locket lay on the table between them, its clasp glinting in the lamplight. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said, his tone gentle but firm. "This was found near your uncle's grave. The woman within. She resembles you." "Who is she?" Amelia's eyes widened, then filled with tears. "My mother, Clara. She died when I was a child. Uncle Harlan raised me, but he was never kind." "Why was it there?" Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was sharp. "A curious place for such a keepsake, no? Tell me, mademoiselle, did you visit the churchyard that night?" "No," Amelia's voice cracked. "I was in London, as I told you. My ticket—" "Oui, the ticket," Poirot interrupted, producing it. "The ink is smudged, the date uncertain. A forgery, perhaps?" Her cheeks flushed. "I swear I bought it fairly. Someone's trying to frame me." Poirot noted her desperation, but also her glance toward the door, as if expecting rescue. He shifted tack. "You spoke of your uncle's cruelty. Did you ever seek to change his mind about the will?" "I begged him," she admitted, her voice bitter. "A month ago, in this very room. He laughed, said I was a burden. But I didn't kill him." His passion rang true, but Poirot's suspicions lingered. Was she a victim of circumstance, or a cunning player in this deadly game? "More." Poirot's mustache twitched. "A sin worth killing to conceal, perhaps?" "Never," Crow's voice boomed, then softened. "I am a man of God." Yet the hidden compartment suggested otherwise. Poirot resolved to search it, with Japp's authority if needed. To advance the evidence, Poirot requested a meeting with Dr. Silas Thorne at his surgery, a tidy cottage with a brass plaque. Thorne, his gaunt frame tense, greeted them with professional courtesy, but his spectacles could not hide his unease. "Doctor," Poirot said, "the arsenic vial in the greenhouse bore your label. And your tonics, did they ever contain arsenic for the judge?" "In trace amounts, as I said," Thorne replied, his voice clipped. "But I never left such a vial there. Someone took it from my surgery." Poirot's eyes drifted to the locked drawer, its key on Thorne's watch chain. "And this blackmail rumor? Lady Eleanor mentioned a letter exposing a scandal. What did Blackthorne know?" Thorne's face hardened. "Lies. I was his physician, nothing more." Yet a tremor in his hand betrayed him. Poirot noted the discrepancy. The vial's presence suggested either carelessness or a frame, but Thorne's locked drawer held answers. Back at the manor, Poirot examined the study again, focusing on the brandy decanter. Chemical analysis, relayed by Japp, confirmed the arsenic was slow-acting, ingested hours before death, likely between 6 and 9. The decanter was wiped clean, but a faint residue in the glass suggested a secondary source. A tonic, perhaps, prescribed by Thorne? Or a quill, licked habitually by the judge? Lady Eleanor, summoned for questioning, revealed a damning clue. "Harlan received a letter from Dr. Thorne months ago," she said, her voice trembling. "It hinted at a scandal, a patient's death covered up. Harlan used it to control him." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And where is this letter, madame?" "Locked in his safe," she said. "I saw him place it there." The safe cracked open post-mortem night, closer than ever, raising the hairs on Jap's neck. "This Vale's cursed," he muttered. "No, Inspector," Poirot said, his eyes alight. "It is a stage, and the killer plays their part. But Hercule Poirot shall unmask them." The locket, the footprints, the legend, all wove a web of deception. But the truth was near, hidden in the Vale's shadows. Chapter 6. Tangled Alibis. The fog over Blackthorn Vale thickened as dawn broke, casting Thornfield Hall in a spectral haze that seemed to mirror the murky tangle of clues surrounding Judge Harlan Blackthorn's murder. Hercule Poirot stood in the Manor's library, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his sharp green eyes scanning the oak shelves as if they might yield the secrets of the killer. The arsenic-laced brandy, the cryptic note, "The sins of the judge shall be judged," and the locket linking Reverend Crowe to Amelia Blackthorn's mother had woven a web of suspicion. The howl from the moors attributed to the legendary sinister judge lingered in the air, a haunting backdrop to Poirot's relentless pursuit of truth. Inspector Jap, his bowler hat askew, paced nearby, his notebook brimming with contradictions. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice a calm anchor in the storm of evidence. "We have motives aplenty, but alibis, they are like threads, fraying under scrutiny. Let us test them with precision." Jap nodded, flipping pages. "Hale's pub story holds, but that back door bothers me. Thorne's surgery log has gaps. Amelia's ticket's dodgy, and Crowe's lying about his Manor visit. And that locket, Crowe and Amelia's mother? It's a ruddy mess, Poirot." "Oui, a mess, but one with order beneath," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching. "We begin with the timeline, for time is the killer's enemy." He sketched the evening of the murder. Blackthorn dined alone at 6, sipped brandy in his study by 9, and was dead by midnight. The arsenic, slow-acting, suggested ingestion between 6 and 8. The decanter, wiped clean, pointed to premeditation. That morning confirmed Hale's presence until 10. But a barmaid noted a 15-minute absence around 8:30. "Went for a smoke," Hale claimed, but his fidgeting fingers suggested more. Poirot dismissed him, noting the contradiction for later. Next was Dr. Silas Thorne, met at his surgery, where the air smelled of antiseptic and secrets. His gaunt frame was tense, his spectacles glinting as he defended his alibi. "I was here, seeing patients until 9, he said, producing a logbook. "Check it yourself." Poirot's eyes scanned the entries, noting a gap between 7 and 8. "And this hour, doctor? Where were you?" "A house call," Thorne said quickly. "Old Mrs. Cotter, chest pains." A call to Mrs. Cotter's cottage later confirmed the visit, but only from 8:15, leaving a window unaccounted for. Poirot pressed further. "The vial in the greenhouse, monsieur. It bore your label. And the blackmail letter Lady Eleanor mentioned. What scandal did Blackthorn hold over you?" Thorne's face hardened. "I told you it's nonsense. I prescribed tonics, nothing more." Yet the locked drawer in his surgery, glimpsed earlier, beckoned. Poirot resolved to secure a warrant, suspecting it held the blackmail letter, or worse. At the vicarage, Reverend Josiah Crowe was visibly shaken. his clerical collar askew as he faced Poirot's scrutiny. The locket, shown to him, elicited a gasp. "Clara, Amelia's mother," he stammered. "I knew her years ago, before my vows. Harlan used it against me, threatened to expose an old liaison." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A sin worth killing for, perhaps?" "Never!" Crow's voice boomed, then cracked. "I repented long ago. My visit to Lady Eleanor was innocent, spiritual counsel, nothing more. Yet the barmaid's sighting placed him near the manor at 9, contradicting his timeline. The hidden compartment in his desk, noted earlier, suggested more secrets." Poirot leaned forward. A blood-stained glove, matching Lady Eleanor's, but found near footprints resembling Amelia's, suggested otherwise. Poirot shifted tack. "You argued with your uncle about the will. Did you know of a revised version hidden in his safe?" Amelia shook her head, but her hesitation betrayed her. "I heard rumors. He mentioned it once, taunting me. The safe, cracked open after the murder, held the will favoring Lady Eleanor and a charity, cutting Amelia out. Its discovery post-mortem suggested tampering. But by whom? Lady Eleanor, questioned again in her sitting room, was a vision of restraint, her dove-gray gown accentuating her pallor. The glove shown to her elicited a gasp. "It's mine, but I lost it weeks ago. Someone's trying to frame me." "And the footprints, madame?" Poirot asked. "Small, like yours, near the glove." "I garden, monsieur," she said, her voice trembling. "But I swear I didn't touch that vial or the brandy." Her alibi, time in the kitchen with the maid, held, but the maid's absence tonight raised questions. Poirot noted the faint scent of lavender, masking something acrid. Fear or guilt. New evidence emerged. A forensic report confirmed the arsenic was delivered via the brandy, but a trace residue in a tonic bottle, prescribed by Thorne, suggested a secondary source. Was the decanter a decoy? The tonic the true weapon? Poirot requested further tests, his hypothesis evolving. The village buzzed with rumors of another ghostly sighting, and Japp's constable reported fresh footprints near the churchyard, matching those by the glove. "It's like the killer's taunting us," Japp said, exasperated. "Oui," Poirot replied. "But boldness breeds errors. The locket, the glove, the vial. These are pieces of a puzzle, but the picture is incomplete." That evening, as Poirot reviewed his notes at the Blackthorn Arms, a commotion erupted outside. Rushing to the manor, they found the study's curtains ablaze, flames licking the walls. The fire was quick. Poirot stood by the manor's window, the fog pressing against the glass. The howl came again, closer, as if the veil itself were conspiring. "The killer plays a dangerous game," he whispered. "But Hercule Poirot plays a better one." The fire, the locket, the footprints, all were threads in a tightening net. But the killer's next move loomed, hidden in the shadows of Blackthorn Vale. Chapter 7. The Hidden Will. The acrid scent of charred wood lingered in Thornfield Hall's study, where the previous night's fire had left its mark on the oak-paneled walls. Hercule Poirot stood amidst the debris, his immaculate suit a stark contrast to the singed chaos, his sharp green eyes scanning the remnants of Judge Harlan Blackthorn's domain. The arsenic poisoning, the cryptic note, The sins of the judge shall be judged, and the web of clues, from the blood-stained glove to the locket linking Reverend Crowe to Amelia Blackthorne's mother, had tightened the noose of suspicion. The fire, clearly arson, suggested a killer desperate to destroy evidence. But Poirot's little gray cells were undeterred, piecing together the puzzle with relentless precision. Inspector Japp, his bowler hat dusted with ash, sifted through papers on the desk, his face etched with frustration. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice calm yet incisive. "The fire was no accident. The killer seeks to burn away the truth, but truth, like Hercule Poirot, is not so easily consumed." Japp grunted, holding up a singed document. "Found this in the safe, Poirot. It's the judge's will. Barely readable now, but it confirms Amelia's cutout, with Lady Eleanor and a charity getting the lot. Handwriting's Blackthorne's, but look at this watermark. Odd for his usual paper." Poirot examined the scorched page, his gloved fingers tracing the faint watermark. A stylized quill, unlike the judge. "Preposterous. I had no access to his safe. Blackthorne blackmailed me, yes, over a patient's death years ago. A mistake, not a crime. I wanted him silenced, but not dead." Poirot's mustache twitched. "And your alibi, monsieur? Your house call to Mrs. Cotter leaves an hour unaccounted for. Enough time to visit the manor." Thorne's eyes darted to his locked drawer, glimpsed earlier. "I was tending my records," he insisted. "Check my log." A call to Mrs. Cotter had confirmed Thorne's visit from 8:15, but the gap from 7 to 8 remained. Poirot pressed further. "The tonic bottle, doctor. It contained arsenic residue, oui? Did you tamper with it?" Thorne paled. "I prescribed tonics, nothing more. Someone must have contaminated it." The doctor's alibi held, barely, but the tonic bottle was a new lead. Forensic analysis, relayed by Japp, confirmed trace arsenic, suggesting a dual delivery method, brandy and tonic. A red herring, or a clever disguise. Poirot requested the bottle for further tests, suspecting Thorne's involvement. Next, they confronted Victor Hale in the manor's conservatory, where the humid air clung to the skin. Hale's scarred hands clenched, his glare defiant. "I didn't set no fire," he growled. "I was at the pub like I said, and I ain't been near no safe." Poirot tilted his head. "Your fingerprints, monsieur, were on the arsenic vial in the greenhouse, and your absence from the pub, 15 minutes, no? Enough to slip to the manor." Hale's jaw tightened. "Someone's framing me, like Blackthorne did years ago. I'd have faced him man to man, not skulked with poison." The barmaid's testimony confirmed the absence, but no one saw Hale near the manor. His motive, revenge for a wrongful conviction, was strong, but his method seemed unlikely. Poirot dismissed him, noting the fingerprints as a potential plant. Amelia Blackthorne was next, met in the drawing room, her fiery hair loose, her eyes red from trembling as Poirot revealed the locket's photograph. "Clara was a youthful indiscretion," he confessed, his voice breaking. "I fathered a child before my vows, Amelia's mother. Harlan knew, threatened to expose me to ruin the church." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And your visit to the manor, Reverend? A lie, no? You were seen outside at 9, arguing with the judge." Crowe's face drained of color. "I confronted him about his threats. He laughed, said I'd fall like the rest. I left in anger, but I didn't kill him. The hidden compartment in his desk, searched with Jap's warrant, revealed letters from Clara, but no evidence of murder. Crow's sin was motive, but his opportunity was thin. Lady Eleanor, met in her sitting room, was a vision of restraint, her lavender scent masking something sharper. The glove, confirmed as hers, elicited a gasp. I lost it gardening, she said. Someone must have taken it. And the footprints, madame? Poirot asked. Yours, near the glove, in the garden where the vial was found. I walk there daily, she said, her voice trembling. But I swear I touched no poison. Her alibi, time in the kitchen, held, but the maid's absence raised doubts. Poirot noted her composure cracking, a sign of pressure. A new clue emerged. The quill pen, habitually licked by Blackthorn, bore traces arsenic, confirmed by a rushed forensic report. The delivery method, Poirot realized, was dual, brandy and quill, a chemical reaction triggered by the judge's habit. The killer knew his routines intimately, pointing to someone close. Poirot gathered the suspects in the dining room, the chandelier casting accusing shadows. Mesdames et messieurs, he said. The fire was set to destroy the will, but it revealed more. The quill, laced with arsenic, was the true weapon, activated by the brandy. Who among you knew the judge's habits? Gasps echoed. Thorne protested. Impossible. My tonics were safe. Hales, the suspects. A crash outside signaled another act. Glass shattered in the greenhouse. A new note pinned to a rose. The truth burns brighter than fire. Jap cursed. They're toying with us, Poirot. Oui, Poirot said, his voice steady. But every taunt is a step closer to their unmasking. The howl came again, piercing the night, as if the sinister judge himself were watching, waiting for the final act. Chapter 8. Revelations in the Rain. Rain lashed Thornfield Hall, its torrents drumming against the tall windows like a requiem for Judge Harlan Blackthorn, poisoned by arsenic and found with a cryptic note. The sins of the judge shall be judged. The storm mirrored the turmoil within the manor, where Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing room, his immaculate suit untouched by the chaos of the investigation. The fire in the study, the singed will, the blood-stained glove, and the locket tying Reverend Crowe to Amelia Blackthorn's mother had woven a tapestry of deception. And now a shattered greenhouse window and a new note. The truth burns brighter than fire, taunted Poirot's pursuit of the killer. Inspector Jap, his bowler hat dripping, paced beside him, his notebook sodden but clutched tightly. Mon ami, Poirot said, his voice a beacon of calm. The killer grows bold, leaving notes like breadcrumbs. But Hercule Poirot follows not crumbs, but truth. Let us gather the suspects and unravel this web. Jap nodded, his face grim. They're all here, Poirot. Lady Eleanor, Hale, Thorne, Amelia, Crowe, each with a motive, and those alibis are crumbling faster than the manor's plaster. The drawing room was a stage of tension, its velvet drapes heavy with damp, the chandelier casting flickering shadows. Lady Eleanor Blackthorn sat composed, her dove-gray gown pristine, but her hands betrayed her, twisting a lace handkerchief. Victor Hale slouched, his scarred hands clenched, his glare defiant. Dr. Silas Thorne adjusted his spectacles, his gaunt face. Thorne's tone was sharp. My tonics were safe. Someone tampered with them. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. I was at the inn, not the manor. Crow murmured a prayer. I sought only to counsel, not to kill. Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. Let us lay bare the motives. Madame Eleanor, you were trapped in a loveless marriage, poised to inherit a fortune. Monsieur Hale, your decade in prison, wrongfully sentenced by Blackthorn, fueled your rage. Dr. Thorne, the judge blackmailed you over a patient's death. Mademoiselle Amelia, disinheritance drove your desperation. Reverend Crow, your secret, a child born out of wedlock, was a sin Blackthorn threatened to expose. The suspects shifted, their eyes darting. Poirot continued, his voice steady. The clues are many, but false trails abound. The blood-stained glove, Madame Eleanor's, found with footprints matching yours or Mademoiselle Amelia's. The arsenic vial in the greenhouse, bearing Dr. Thorne's label, but with Monsieur Hale's prints. The locket, linking Reverend Crow to Clara, Amelia's mother. The fire, set to destroy the will. And these notes, echoing the legend of the sinister judge. A red herring to evoke fear. Jap interjected, producing the latest note. This one, pinned to a rose in the greenhouse, same ink, same hand. The killer's taunting us, Poirot. Oui, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. But taunts reveal arrogance, and arrogance breeds mistakes. Let us test the alibis once more. He turned to Lady Eleanor. Madame, your kitchen alibi depends on a maid who is conveniently absent. Did you slip into the study, perhaps to lace the brandy? Her face paled. I swear I did not. I lost that glove weeks ago. Poirot shifted to Hale. Monsieur, your absence from the pub, 15 minutes, enough to reach the manor. Did you plant the vial to frame the doctor? Hale's fists clenched. I told you, someone's setting me up. Dr. Thorne, your expertise is notable. Thorne stood, outraged. I am no murderer. My tonics were tampered with. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Yet the tonic bottle, overlooked until now, held the same arsenic. And the will's watermark. Your stationery, no. The room fell silent, the rain's drumbeat the only sound. Poirot continued. The notes, written in fresh ink, mimic the sinister judge's legend. A killer familiar with the Vale's folklore, or exploiting it. The fire set to destroy the will suggests desperation. But one clue remains, the greenhouse note pinned with a thorn. A rose, symbolic of love or betrayal. Jap whispered, It's got to be Eleanor. The glove, the footprints, the inheritance. No, Poirot said, his voice low. The glove was planted, the footprints too convenient. We looked deeper. Amelia broke, her voice a sob. I saw Reverend Crow that night, outside the study, arguing with Uncle. He said, You'll face judgment. I ran, scared. Crow's face drained of color. A lie. I sought only to reason, to beg him to spare my reputation. Poirot's mind raced. The quill's arsenic, the tonic's residue, the forged will, all pointed to a killer with access and knowledge. A new lead emerged. A groundskeeper's report of a hidden compartment in the greenhouse containing a vial of rat poison, arsenic-based, from the church's stores. Crow's access to the church was undeniable. You, Reverend, Poirot said, his tone piercing, had access to rat poison. Did you lace the brandy during your council? using the legends to mask your deed. Crow fell to his knees, praying. I swear I did not. I confronted him, yes, but I left him alive. Yet the evidence mounted. The hair, the poison, the argument. Poirot turned to the group. The killer is among us, but the web is complex. The glove, planted by Monsieur Hale to deflect suspicion, was a red herring. The Quill's role was critical. Who had access to both? He turned to Amelia, his gaze unrelenting. Mademoiselle, you arranged the brandy. You knew the judge's habits. You forged the ticket to hide your presence. Did you judge your uncle for his sins? Amelia collapsed, sobbing. He cut me out for his cruelty, his lies. I wanted justice. Japp stepped forward, cuffs ready, but Poirot raised a hand. No, Inspector. There is more. The killer is not Mademoiselle Amelia. It is. The room held its breath, the storm roaring outside as Poirot's words hung. A cliffhanger in the Vale's dark heart. Chapter 9. The deduction unfolds. The rain battered Thornfield Hall, its relentless rhythm a counterpoint to the electric tension in the drawing room where Hercule Poirot stood, his impeccable suit a beacon of order amidst the chaos of Judge Harlan Blackthorne's murder. The suspects, Lady Eleanor Blackthorne, Victor Hale, Dr. Silas Thorne, Amelia Blackthorne, and Reverend Josiah Crow, sat in a semicircle, their faces etched with fear, defiance, and guilt. The arsenic-laced brandy, the cryptic notes echoing the legend of the sinister judge, the singed will, the blood-stained glove, the locket, and the greenhouse fire had woven a labyrinth of clues. Poirot's little gray cells, sharp as ever, were poised to unravel the killer's identity. Inspector Japp, his bowler hat clutched tightly, stood by the door, his eyes wide with anticipation as Poirot's last words, "It is," hung in the air like a thunderclap. "Dr. Silas Thorne," Poirot declared, his voice slicing through the storm's roar, his green eyes locking on to the gaunt physician. Gasps erupted, chairs creaking as the suspects leaned forward. Thorne surged to his feet, his spectacles glinting with outrage. "Impossible. My alibi is ironclad. A house call to Mrs. Cotter confirmed." Poirot raised a hand, his calm unshaken. "Verified, monsieur, but incomplete. Your house call began." Trace of antiseptic was noted in the doctor's surgery. A letter, hidden in his locked drawer, confirmed your liaison. Blackthorne's threat to expose it drove the doctor to murder. Thorne's voice cracked. "You have no proof." "Au contraire," Poirot said, producing a forensic report from Japp. "The tonic bottle, overlooked until now, bore arsenic residue, identical to that in the judge's system. Your surgery's locked drawer held the formula, a slow-release compound, your own creation. The brandy was a red herring, a secondary method to ensure death, laced during your visit under the guise of a medical check." The room was silent, save for the rain's drumbeat. Poirot continued, his voice steady. "The notes, mimicking the sinister judge legend, were your flourish, Doctor. You knew the Vale's folklore, learned from village gossip, and used it to sow fear, diverting suspicion to the supernatural. The quill, laced with arsenic, was a backup, activated by the judge's habit of licking it, a habit you observed as his physician." Amelia's voice trembled. "But the will, my disinheritance, I arranged the brandy as you said." "Oui, mademoiselle," Poirot said, his tone softening. "You were manipulated. The brandy, gifted through your London contact, was tampered by Dr. Thorne, who supplied the bottle. Your forged ticket was a desperate lie to hide your presence, but you are no killer. You sought only to reclaim your inheritance. Hale's fists clenched. What about my prints on the vial? You saying I'm clear? Poirot nodded. Your prints, Monsieur Hale, were planted. A vial from Thorne's surgery, placed in the greenhouse to frame you. Your revenge was loud, but not lethal. Crow, clutching his prayer book, whispered, "And my sin? The locket?" "A distraction," Poirot said. "Your liaison with Clara, Amelia's mother, was a secret Blackthorne exploited. But you lacked the means for poison. The hair on the will, your gray strand, was planted by Thorne to muddy the waters." Eleanor's lightning illuminating the Vale's shadowed hills. Poirot turned to Jap. "The case is closed, mon ami. But one question lingers. The howl, heard each night, was it mere wind, or a warning from the Vale's past?" Jap shivered. "Wind, Poirot. Has to be. Ghosts don't leave footprints." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his mustache twitching. "Yet the human heart is the true mystery, no? It howls louder than any moor." The suspects dispersed, their secrets laid bare. But the Vale's atmosphere remained heavy. Poirot stepped to the window, the rain streaking the glass like tears. The notes, the fire, the glove, all were Thorne's attempts to obscure his crime. But the tonic, overlooked by all but Poirot, was the key. The locket, tying Crow to Amelia's mother, was a coincidence exploited by the doctor to cast suspicion. The will's watermark, his stationery, was his final mistake, linking him to the forgery meant to frame Amelia. Outside, the churchyard loomed, its headstones silent witnesses to the Vale's secrets. Poirot's mind replayed the timeline. Thorne's visit to Blackthorne at 7, swapping the tonic. The brandy, tampered via Amelia's gift. The quill, a redundant method to ensure death. The notes, penned in disguised script, were his theatrical flourish, echoing the sinister judge to sow fear. The fire, set to destroy the will, was his desperate bid to cover tracks when Poirot's investigation closed in. Yet the howl gnawed at him. A meteorological quirk or something deeper. The villagers' tales of the sinister judge, Silas Blackthorne, hanged in 1723, felt too close to the crime. Was Thorne's mimicry mere opportunism? Or had the Vale's history shaped his psyche? Poirot dismissed the thought. His method was logic, not superstition. He turned to Jap, who was securing the evidence. The doctor's arrogance was his undoing, Inspector. He underestimated the order of Hercule Poirot. Jap chuckled, though his eyes were weak. Chapter 10. Justice Served. The storm had passed, leaving Blackthorne Vale bathed in a fragile sunlight that pierced the morning mist, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets and ancient oaks. Thornfield Hall stood silent, its ivy-clad facade a mute witness to the resolution of Judge Harlan Blackthorne's murder. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit pristine despite the Vale's damp, stood at the manor's grand entrance, his silver-tipped cane resting lightly in his gloved hands. The arrest of Dr. Silas Thorne, unmasked as the killer who poisoned the judge with arsenic-laced tonic and brandy, had lifted the pall of fear, but the Vale's eerie atmosphere lingered, as did the haunting howl attributed to the legendary sinister judge. Inspector Jap, his bowler hat firmly in place, joined Poirot, his face a mix of relief and exhaustion as they prepared to depart for the train station. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice calm yet tinged with reflection. "The case is closed, the killer caught. Yet the heart of Blackthorn Vale still whispers its secrets, no?" Jap chuckled, adjusting his coat. "Another triumph for your little gray cells, Poirot. Thorn's locked up, and the village can breathe again. But that howl, I'll be glad to leave it behind." They walked through the manor's gardens, where the roses, still damp from the storm, glistened in the sunlight. The blood-stained glove, the locket, the singed will, and the cryptic notes, "The sins of the judge shall be judged," had all been pieces of a puzzle meticulously assembled by Poirot. Thorn's motive, a desperate bid to silence Blackthorn's blackmail over his affair with Lady Eleanor, had driven him to a cunning dual-method murder. Arsenic in the tonic, reinforced by the brandy. The notes, echoing the Vale's folklore, were his theatrical flourish, meant to sow fear and confusion. The fire, the glove, the forged will, all red herrings to obscure his guilt. But Poirot's logic had prevailed, exposing the truth hidden in the Vale's shadows. At the said, her voice steady, "I shall honor Harlan's charitable wishes, but with fairness. The Vale deserves healing." Her affair with Thorn, exposed by the blackmail letter, had been a source of shame, but she vowed to rebuild, her elegance tempered by humility. Poirot admired her strength, noting the absence of the lavender scent that once masked her fear. Victor Hale, the ex-convict wrongfully sentenced by Blackthorn, had been cleared of suspicion, his fingerprints on the arsenic vial revealed as a plant by Thorn. At the Blackthorn Arms, Poirot had found him nursing an ale, his scarred hands steady for the first time. "I'm free of his shadow," Hale had said, his voice gruff but relieved. "Gonna clear my name proper, start over." Amelia Blackthorn, the disinherited niece, had confessed to forging her train ticket out of fear, but her innocence in the murder was certain. Poirot had spoken with her in the conservatory, where she tended the roses, her fiery hair catching the light. "Uncle was cruel," she admitted. "But I never wanted this. I'll make my own way now." Her reconciliation with her past, and with Reverend Crowe, who had known her mother Clara, marked a new beginning. The locket, a keepsake of her mother, was returned to her, a symbol of closure. Reverend Josiah Crowe, his secret of fathering a child with Clara exposed, had faced his congregation with humility. Poirot had visited the vicarage, finding Crowe drafting a sermon on forgiveness. "My sin is known," he said, his voice soft. "But I'll serve the Vale, redeem my past." His alibi, flawed by the barmaid's sighting, was no longer relevant. The hair on the will, planted by Thorn, had cleared him. The church's rack poison, a potential source of arsenic, was a red herring, its access too broad to pinpoint Crowe. The train's whistle grew louder, and Poirot's thoughts turned to the Vale's legend. The sinister judge, Silas Blackthorn, had been a corrupt magistrate, his spirit said to haunt the unjust. The howls, heard nightly, had fueled the village's fear, amplifying Thorn's notes. Poirot, ever the rationalist, slow-release dose. The brandy, tampered via Amelia's gift, ensured lethality. The quill, a false lead, was meant to confuse. The notes, penned in disguised script, exploited this sinister judge legend, learned from village gossip. The fire, set to destroy the will, was a desperate act when Poirot's investigation closed in. The glove, stolen from Eleanor, and the footprints, mimicking hers or Amelia's, were distractions. as was the locket, a coincidence Thorne used to implicate Crow. Yet the case's resolution felt incomplete. The howl, the sightings, the Vale's oppressive air. Were they mere atmosphere, or something more? Poirot dismissed the thought, his method rooted in logic, not superstition. Still, he recalled Mrs. Cotter's tales, the village's keeper of lore, who spoke of Silas Blackthorne's warnings. Had Thorne, steeped in the Vale's history, seen himself as a modern judge, dispensing justice? The train rattled through the countryside, leaving Blackthorn Vale behind. Japp dozed, his notebook slipping from his grasp. Poirot opened his own, reviewing his final notes. The timeline was clear. Thorne's visit at 7, swapping the tonic. The brandy, poisoned earlier. The death by midnight. The evidence, tonic residue, the letter in Thorne's drawer, the watermark on the will, sealed his guilt. The howl, a natural phenomenon, had been a convenient cloak for Thorne's theatrics. Yet as the train neared London, a final detail surfaced. A telegram from the local constable, delivered at the station, reported a new find. A hidden cache in Thorne's surgery, containing a vial of the same arsenic and a draft of the murder note, in his undisguised hand. The case, already airtight, was now unassailable. Poirot closed his notebook, his mustache curving slightly. "The order and method of Hercule Poirot have prevailed," he murmured. Yet the Vale's shadows linger, a reminder of the heart's complexity. In Blackthorn Vale, life resumed.